I'm happy to kickstart things right now. I hope everybody's having a lovely Saturday. Greetings from Northern California over in the East Bay side, and let's get started. So welcome. A little bit about myself. My name is Lydia Morales. I am a youth engagement coordinator here at H2O. I've been with Heirs for shortly a little bit over a year now, and within my first year, I've had so much great opportunities with so many different things and been able to have my hands in so many different buckets. But prior to Heirs, I hadn't been involved in any volunteer or nonprofit organization work before. So I thought this was just a great approach for myself, since it is very youth-led and very youth-centric. And I've come to find out that youth-led is just a very different org within itself. And within my first 6 months at Heirs to Our Oceans, I had the opportunity to attend their yearly summit, SEAL, which is our summit, excuse me, for empowering action and leadership. And within that summit, it is a 2-week intensive where they're diving into many different solutions, and many of the problems are faced within the communities and each other, and really bringing youth from all international worlds and very different areas of the maps that bring them together to just really find those solutions and very critical mindset feel about just the approach that they are proceeding with our very world crisis and just the problems that they are inheriting as youth. So within that, I had the opportunity to facilitate some workshops, which helped me drive my initiative from being in our fundraising and grants programs when I first joined to now being a youth engagement coordinator. So what does that really mean, right? So with that, I'm able to just really sit down on the conversations that youth, especially our youth initiatives, where really helping them drive like project management and how that looks like to really get them to reach their goals, and ultimately building those solutions for the problems that they want to tackle within, as I mentioned, their communities, a bigger world war change, or even policy change that comes through. Within that, this is going to be very, very picture oriented because I am a big on photography, and along with just the old school film. So I feel like pictures have a huge impact and have a bigger even story than just me saying it out loud. So I hope you all don't mind. We'll get started with a little bit more of what Heirs is. So Heirs to Our Oceans, our mission is to inspire the next generation of leaders by connecting them in purpose, educating them on our environmental and humanitarian crises they are inheriting, and cultivating the necessary skills to make real world change. We support Heirs in realizing solutions to today's global challenges. And this is huge. When I had first joined, I was like, whoa, like this is the center of it all, right? So what is all of this coming together? And basically H2O, we're all split within programs. And within these programs, they really fall within these 3 pillars, which are our education empowerment programs, which are our youth leadership summits. And within that, having the opportunity to skill building and having the resources to really have those technologies to implement those skill building opportunities. And within that, we also have our movement building and networking, excuse me. And from our youth, really, it's tuning into these summits, these workshops, they're able to then really drive that movement to creating a network with our US YACs, which I'll get into a little bit later, and our youth network and what that network really builds out within our programs. And of course, our social innovation action. Sorry, my throat's a little. And really that is just building everything around it and really being the core foundation of helping them drive their initiatives, empowering them to drive the movement behind the initiatives, and ultimately helping them reach the goals that they would want within those programs and initiatives. So diving in a little bit of our education and empowerment programs. Behind this is just the vision of protecting our blue planet, right? We're all one source. We're all here together, either living our own footprint or wanting to tackle the footprints that were left prior to us. And within our education empowerment programs, as I mentioned, we facilitate international leadership summits where we bring youths from across the world into one place to really help them expose into the problem, have the opportunity to sit alongside experts, learn from the experts, learn from the communities that are seeing these really first-class problems live within their communities, learning from their communities, building, apologies if we hear my cat meowing, building solutions within those communities that will help drive not the solution just for that problem for that community, but for, I apologize, but for the broader scope of our entire globe. And within these empowerment programs, we also have the opportunity to educate them in really building those world skills that we like to call, with public speaking, having the opportunity to be in policy advocacy summits, and holding those hill days to learn about how to build out policy, how to review policy, how to be a part of the table, and just having that different kind of approach to a very different solution-oriented mindset, from besides just being in the field, but to also implementing what you're learning and the research to paper and really presenting them to your peers and those above them. And along with having just the opportunity to be a part of these programs and learning from one another, we also provide the resources to have them connect with one another, learn from one another is really the ultimate goal here, especially for our most valuable situated youths from across the world where they might not see that. We want to implement and amplify their voices to also be heard across the platforms that we are using on our everyday lives. Which leads to our movement buildings and networking. So, right, we've given all of the youths all of these great opportunities to really build their skills, learn from one another. So what is being bloomed from this, right? So far we've had 2 initiatives, which is our Youth Advisory Council, which is the US YAC, and they're helping our UN Ocean Decade with that. They're being involved in the conversation. You know, I feel like especially not that long ago, you wouldn't really see many youth part of the conversation, let alone being able to really amplify their voices within the process and the policy that is currently being written. So they've had the opportunity to review, make edits in current policies that are being thrown within the UN Ocean Decade. As I mentioned, really collaborating with one another as youth, as the experts, learning, really being growth mindset in both ends, honestly, where they're learning and are taking that approach of wanting to learn from one another and not having that barrier, but instead of that bridge to really that collaborative end goal. And with that, we just finished our RAISE initiative, which is our regenerative agriculture and indigenous systems for our environment, which is an H2O youth-led initiative. They just wrapped up their 1-year research just this last couple of months, and it's in our h2o.org website. You're able to read the research and just the policy advocacy around there, and just really the meaning of indigenous practice and how that is really the core of changing just not our values, but also our mindsets and ultimately our approaches in so many different ways that we live our everyday lives, how we really contribute to our footprint, from the way we buy to just how we plant our food and just really nourish ourselves with our food. So I strongly recommend you to just really read that paper. It is just astonishing and just really mind-blowing just to see that this is coming from youth. And this is one of the reasons why I was just so empowered to even be a part of this organization, because of just the initiative and just the drive that these youth have from across the world. It's just a place where it empowers you and it wants you to just help them, drive them in any way that you can also provide them while also learning from them. And it's just a great experience to be a part of. And it's really meaningful, at least for myself. Which leads us to our social innovation action, right? So we've talked about the skill building and the hard skills and just really the implementation to them, really implementing them to the connection and networks that they've been able to really take their foot in, to now the social innovation action, right? So within all of this, really our support here is providing them this access and the skill building opportunities to really help them become empathetic leaders, and having that solutions oriented mindset to also help support not just H2O youth, but any youth-led organization that really aligns with our mission and wanting to tackle those problems that are just aligned with our footprint and just environmental and humanitarian crisis that ultimately the youth and the youth before our youth and after are definitely going to be inheriting. And since we are just a little bit over our 5 years of being an organization, you know, we're starting to really expand our opportunities and just involvement with people who are interested on wanting to join, to being an intern or volunteer with a potential conversion of a part-time or full-time paid opportunity as an employee with H2O. If that is something of interest to you, I've dropped the link here of our volunteer form. The website will look similar to something like this. If you're interested, I completely recommend you to check out the form. It has different kind of areas of your expertise or things that you would want to also be involved in or you're interested in. If you have any further questions, you're more than welcome to also email us at info@heirstoouroceans.org. And with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions or any comments anybody might have.
So for those who are watching, those who are viewing, you can put the question in the Q&A. I don't believe our Whoba app, we've had a question on there so far, but I'll start with a question here. So for you, Lydia, what does a typical day look like for you? Or are there pretty atypical days, maybe if you're, kind of a little different each time?
Yeah, great question. I think for myself, they're very different every other day. I think it's very just project oriented, where if I have a project, I'm going to be very focused on that. Like my previous one was just building up our layout for our announcement for our next SEAL summit. So with that, very on Canva, like very design oriented. I've joined some of the YAC meetings. I volunteer with our communications team within our YAC program. So tuning into these meetings, driving any conversations or any initiatives that I can help in any way with project management, any goals that they might need to hit, giving those reminders, or maybe driving some conversations where they might be stuck in, or adding some of my solutions into some of their problems or some of their pain points that they might be reaching out to other stakeholders that might be interested in wanting to join, and a lot of outreach, at least from my end, with my with my company. Since I'm not a full-time employee at Heirs, I have kind of that bridge between like corporate America and then also a nonprofit organization, especially youth-led. It is a great opportunity to also having my implementation in that aspect of that PR, also like relations, fundraising aspect.
Very nice. I got another. I got another question for you. So what characteristics do you think will kind of make individuals stand out? So what kind of qualities do you think have allowed you to be successful in your field? And anyone else who's interested, what kind of characteristics do you think are a good match?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I think having that growth mindset, and like me personally, I'm 24, so I'm learning from youth that are 12 to 15. So it's just having that humbleness behind not having that closed mindset of like, oh, I've known what I've known and I've gone through what I've known, so there's no other ways, but just having the complete opposite approach of like wanting to collaborate and just really having that goal-centric mindset of like, we're all here in purpose, finding that purpose if we haven't found it together, and just having that characteristics of being solution-oriented and having the drive to want to help, especially not feeling like you've overcome a certain aspect of a characteristics, but to also help mold, but then also help those around you build those characteristics that you might not everybody have. I would also say, like me personally, I didn't have any experience with any marine environmental or marine biology prior to joining. So I think if you do have that, which is amazing to have, just implementing that, right? And not being scared to not wanting to implement that just because there's so many other things that might be going around, and just having that approach of you are working with youth led, so just having that leadership format of engagement and also encouragement and helping them build up their conversation, but also help them push a little bit of more of that outreach network within your network, and of course theirs as well.
All right. We have a question from the audience. I guess we would have to ask, well, where are you based? And then if it's for local residents only, or if it's kind of a countrywide sort of thing that you could participate in.
Yeah, great question. So I am based in Northern California, so I'm in the East Bay, but our offices are in Redwood City, so just across the bridge. But yeah, if you're interested in any parts of the world, you are more than welcome to There is not just one specific part that we're looking to recruit. But yeah, if you're in Northern California, East Coast, West Coast, across the world, you are more than welcome to reach out if you are interested in attending in any volunteer or internship.
And I guess we can close it off with a final question here. Let's see. Yeah, so I guess what led you to this career choice? We can end with that. And what kind of led you to, choosing this, what you represent? What was kind of the formation of that?
Yeah, I think just my approach in being in a youth-led organization just really came from when I was being helped developed at such a young age, and just how that really impacted me to where I am now, to how I am as a person and just how I view it. And I think it also helped me realize that I wasn't getting that stimulation of not doing anything and not being part of something. So now being part of something and learning and helping drive the action and mission, it has stimulated in a way where I was totally unaware of. And I think with that, it's also finding and realizing and really having the intention to implement those things that you really do need and want to help others achieve. And that really went back to just me on my kind of leadership trajectory, and having that kind of be my focus on wanting to help youth now to become the leaders that really helped me become one in myself. It might not be in the same structure or just the same environment within the information and knowledge that is being shared, but it's still the same implementation of the platform of being empathetic leadership, having that critical mindset. And as I mentioned, with me not having any prior experience of being in an organization that is very environmental focused, and just a lot of policy and everything that really goes into it, it was just a very learning experience. And I think everything that I've learned so far has helped me just hone in on so many different topics and so many different solutions orientation pinpoints. And it has helped me also just drive what I've learned to previously of my leadership skills to also helping them implement them to what they've helped me learn. So I think just having that trajectory is nice, but then also having the alignment with what you are putting your time with is super, super valuable, which has also helped me learn that this is something I want to be a part of, helping youth reach their goals by being empathetic leaders, helping them understand what is empathetic leaders, being design orientated, design critically thinking, having those design solutions. So I think it's just also implementing just what I know and just what my career trajectory is as a designer and an aspiring designer, to also kind of colliding them with what my work is here. So it's been a great pleasure having the opportunity to volunteer with Heirs, because even now having this opportunity to present at my first ever career fair, to be honest, and it's just those opportunities that you would have never thought you would have unless you really do go out there and connect and network and really put yourself and your time out there for an organization, for a mission that really aligns with yourself and your values.
Yeah, I agree. And networking is probably one of the biggest things that you should try to reach out and, take that risk in connecting. There's more of a general question we could end on, more about marine biology. So I happen to know what kind of courses someone might want to kind of select when they're in middle school or high school, if they're interested in marine sciences.
Yeah, I think if you're in middle school or high school, I would definitely say get into the biology and the scientific approach of it, because I think that's just the start of it. And with that, it's going to help you really dissect the further kind of autonomous that is going to be building up after that. And with that, I would also just say government and policy, that is the huge thing. I feel like not a lot of people really speak about that because they're just so focused on the field work and just being in that marine environment space. But a lot of the change doesn't happen without policy, and writing that policy and being part of the conversation, as I mentioned, with our US YAC leaders, being part of that conversation is so important, just as much as being insightful of the field. So I think besides just being focused on biology and those curriculums, I think really focusing in on the back end of policy change and writing, and really knowing how a bill is structured and the steps that it takes to build up on that bill, and just also educating yourself on that end, because that's going to ultimately, as I mentioned, it's going to collide and it's going to help drive the movement instead of it kind of being one more than the other. But back to your question about what curriculum, I would just definitely say focus on marine biology, definitely maybe even a little bit of chemistry, just to kind of see the different components that are out there within our environment that'll also ultimately help you see a little bit more on like that data standpoint or research standpoint to implement those on your policy advocacy research papers that you might be doing, or ultimately your grad research paper will definitely help you super later down in the long run if you're talking about middle school or high school.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you know, someone who did major in science, definitely, of course, do biology, environmental sciences, you do need to dabble in chemistry, physics, and mathematics. But like you said, Lydia, how that intersection is really important with policy, you know, government, maybe even a debate team you can join. It's not simply knowing the information, but how are you going to implement it? That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you have anything left to say before we close the session?
Yeah, I think the last thing I would just like to really hone in on is just the specialness of Heirs to Our Oceans, just as I mentioned, being a youth-led organization, and us as the adults or just like the facilitators, really helping them cultivate their mindsets to become empathetic leaderships, and just really driving that approach to not just the in-field opportunities, but also the implementation aspect of the bill writing, being part of the conversation, talking with policy Congress makers. All of that is just really into one big globe that is ultimately going to help drive those end goals and just those sustainable initiatives that we all want to see in our everyday lives and just for everybody in the world. So I think I would just like to wrap up. If you are interested in just also being part of the facilitation role, but then also wanting to learn and also being able to be in that conversation and in that table with so many different opportunities, then Heirs to Our Ocean is definitely for you. As I mentioned, you don't have to be in just Northern California or California overall. And you're more than welcome to tune in from any parts of the world. If you are interested in a volunteer or an internship, as I mentioned, I'll go back into our page. Feel free to reach out to us and or go into our h2o.org/volunteer to fill out our form to get a little bit more insight of what you would want to be a part of and what your interests and what you would want to also bring to the table.
All right, excellent. So for all the viewers there, make sure to use those resources as well as our Whova app or our webpage will have Lydia's contact info as well as additional, information on her speaker profile. But for now, thank you again, Lydia. So Lydia Morales from Heirs of Our Ocean. It was an honor. We're going to end the session. So thank you again for presenting.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you,
course.
everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.